Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now, there has been a significant rise in the number of people sleeping rough on the streets of England, according to official local authority estimates. The number of rough sleepers is up by 16% over a year and has doubled since 2010. Rupert Evelyn reports now from Bristol, where they're providing extra beds during some of the coldest nights of the year.
Exposed, vulnerable and freezing. It's the reality of rough sleeping for those who have nowhere to call home. And it is a firm feature in our everyday landscape. Peter is on the front line. As temperatures dropped again last night, he bedded down in a Bristol park. He's trapped. Having recently returned from overseas, he has to wait 3 months to get help from the state.
I have no rights to any British benefits whatsoever. I can't be housed by the council. I can't receive universal credit. Nothing at all.
And what does that mean in reality?
In reality, it means I've been out sleeping in the frost with no money in my pocket. Sleeping rough.
In this city, like many others, churches are opening their doors. Extra beds to accommodate high demand from those with nowhere else to go. On a single night this autumn in England, there were more than 4,100 people sleeping rough. That's almost 500 more than the year before, and more than double the 1,700 that were estimated to be sleeping on the streets in 2010. Such a marked increase has outraged those who work with rough sleepers.
If you look below the statistics, that's thousands of people who are so desperate that they're forced to sleep in doorways, in bus shelters, in parks, and frankly that's appalling.
And the outlook is bleak, say a charity working with young homeless people in Bristol.
I think it's going to get worse. I think we've got universal credit coming in very strongly into Bristol soon, and I don't think we're ready for the fallout of the number of people that are going to have difficulties with their benefits and therefore difficulty with their housing.
The government say they're investing hundreds of millions, but as the stats rise, they are exposed, vulnerable to the criticism that they're failing to protect those left out in the cold. Rupert Evelyn, ITV News, Bristol.
In the frost of winter, the streets may look alluring in the early morning, but just imagine sleeping out there. There's been a sharp rise in the number of people sleeping rough. In fact, now twice as many homeless people are on the streets than 6 years ago. Latest official figures from a snapshot night in autumn 2016 show there was a total of 4,134 rough sleepers. That's an increase of 16% on the year before. London remains the place with most rough sleepers, 23% of the total. But the numbers show that the problem is actually growing fastest outside the capital. The numbers of rough sleepers in London was up 3% on the previous year, but in the rest of England, it jumped by 21%. From Manchester, here's Simeon Brown.
A night out in the centre of Manchester is something most look forward to, but nightlife means something completely different to these 30-somethings.
I'll show you where I'm stopping tonight.
John is 34, an age where most begin to think about where they can buy a place. John's ambitions are to find a doorway where he's not going to get peed on or attacked.
What determines if you consider an area to be safe or not?
Safe areas is where we see like cameras, like CCTV like on the street, or if they're like pointing to the front of the shop, and then we like normally pitch up there because there's like always security onto us. So safe spots, bad spots are bad.
And if it's not a safe spot, what kind of thing can happen to you?
Well, you can get kicked, you can get spat on, you can get peed on, everything.
But there's not much safety on the streets. But there are new faces to go with today's new figures, revealing that homelessness has risen by 16% since last year, and by over 100% since 2010. Manchester has one of the highest populations of rough sleepers in the country, which makes John's quest for a safe place to rest his head even harder. But first stop for him is a car boot soup kitchen, where we met Anne-Marie, who knows what life is like on these streets for a woman.
It toughened me up a bit, but I didn't need the lesson.
After a long period homeless, she now has her own place, but now feels lonely and comes back to see her friends.
Do you imagine that many of your friends won't survive this winter?
A few of them haven't.
What do you mean?
A few of them have passed away last year, some this year, and some of them are in shelters. They end up on the drink to keep warm, and then it goes to drugs. But I've been lucky, no drugs, too scared. I've seen what it does. But yeah, that's how it happens. Death, divorce, depression.
The soup kitchen is open a few hours a day. When it closes, John and his friends get back on their way. And one even had some fortune.
I'm glad that I've got actual people who are helping me get on the sofas, because probably tomorrow, probably Deansgate, down here, probably all around town, Piccadilly, anywhere safe, as long as I don't get touched or whatever else. I've got to keep myself safe.
Sofa surfers are often the hidden homeless. Counting the full number of rough sleepers is already hard enough. Just 1 in 7 local authorities actually do this. The rest estimate, which means there may be many more out there like John and his friends. Tonight, this is where they're pitching up.
It's quiet, and you've got all them there as well, like looking out on us, cameras.
So this is what good night from John looks like. A bed made up on pavement opposite luxury flats.
Simeon Brown reporting, but we're now joined by the head of the homeless charity Crisis, John Sparks, and in Manchester, the Labour MP Andy Burnham, who's also Labour's candidate to become the city's next mayor. Welcome to you both. Let me start with you, John Sparks. I mean, you heard that report there by Simeon. Why do you think the problem is so bad and getting so much worse, and what should be done about it?
Well, let's start. The figures are appalling. 4,000 people sleeping rough. This is. But
dangerous. Also the rate of increase.
Yeah, the rate of increase as well. And below the statistics, these are thousands of people who are in such a desperate position that they're forced to sleep on the streets, in bus shelters, in doorways. That's a desperate and dangerous position to be in. And the reason we're here is threefold. Firstly, not enough investment in housing that people can really afford. We hear the phrases like affordable housing, but houses that people can really afford. There have been cuts in benefits and the way in which benefits have been managed through sanctions and so on. And also cuts to homelessness services and services for people who are at risk of homelessness, people escaping domestic violence, people with mental health issues and so on. That's why we're here.
Andy Burnham, let me turn to you. You want to be the next mayor of Manchester. Are you going to find homes for all these people who are sleeping rough at the moment?
Sorry, could you repeat the question, sorry?
Will you find homes? Will you make sure that homes are built for all those people who are currently having to sleep on the streets?
Well, that's a difficult commitment to make right here and right now. I do want to solve the housing crisis in Greater Manchester and build more affordable homes, more council homes. But the commitment I can make to you this evening is that if I am elected, I have committed already to eradicate rough sleeping in the city region by 2020. In this day and age, it's not inevitable that people have to spend a night on the streets. It's a consequence of political choices. I would say the cuts that we've seen to mental health, to drug and alcohol services, to social care, those cuts have torn a hole in the safety net that used to be underneath every community. And now, sadly, many people are falling through that net and ending up on the streets. And I can confirm to you tonight from Manchester, it is cold out here tonight. And my heart goes out to anybody who is spending the night on these streets.
But there are 10 councils, 10 boroughs in Manchester who've all decided to go for a major housing plan, a major commitment of 225,000 new homes by 2035. This involves building on greenfield sites. You have opposed building on greenfield sites. Why is that?
Because I don't believe if you go straight to those big sites next to the main roads that those proposals will build the homes that people need. They're about big homes for people with 2 cars and double garages. You know, what we need is more affordable housing, a mix of housing so that we can really give people an affordable home, either to rent or to own. The Westminster approach for too long has all been about promoting owner-occupation. We need to start building more council housing, more affordable housing.
But that's not what the councils have said. They want those greenfield sites because they need the space, even for houses that are not mansions with 2-car garages. They need the space. And you have said that you don't want that space to be used. Is that because you're frightened of losing voters? That there are middle-class voters there who will say, we don't want any building on greenfield sites, we want them out of here, just the brownfield sites?
No, I haven't said that, to be honest. What I've said is the plan that's been put forward needs to be rewritten, because there's too much focus on the green sites that are very attractive to developers that produce those high-value homes, and not enough focus on building higher density housing in our existing town centres. It's all a question of balance. I'm not against development where it's appropriate, but I do want to see a plan here in Greater Manchester that over the 20-year period tackles our housing crisis. Westminster has given Greater Manchester a housing crisis. The plan we've seen so far doesn't solve it, and I want a plan that does.
Okay.
So we need a better mix of housing, and crucially, more council housing, more social housing, and better regulation of the private rented sector.
We've run out of time. Andy Burnham, John Sparks, thank you very much indeed.
I've been getting